My boyfriend got drunk at a party and announced to everyone, she's basically my maid with benefits, good for cleaning and paying rent, but way too boring for anything else. When I tried to leave, he grabbed my wrist and yelled, sit down. Look, guys, she doesn't even have the guts to walk away. Pathetic, right? His friends laughed while he blocked the door, waving my purse around like it was a joke. I just smiled, sat back down, and waited for the night to end. This morning, I woke up to 20 missed calls from his parents, begging me to pick up. The words hit me like a physical blow, echoing in the stunned silence of the room. She's basically my maid with benefits, he slurred, a smirk twisting his face. Good for scrubbing toilets, paying rent, but way too boring for anything else. In that moment, my entire world tilted, and I knew my life was about to change forever. Honestly, you guys, I still can't believe it happened. So, yeah, that was Douglas, my boyfriend of almost 2 years, though I'm not even sure I can call him that anymore. My name's Haley, I'm 27, and he's 28. We'd been living together for about 13 months, but it wasn't some romantic, oh my god we're so in love, move. It was practical. His lease was up, my apartment was falling apart, and honestly, I thought it might be fun. For a while, it kind of was. Then it really wasn't. Okay, so this whole nightmare started at a party last weekend. Not even our friend's party, oddly enough. It was Claire, our landlord's daughter, who was like, hey, you guys seem chill, come hang out. I'd only met Claire once in person, she usually just blasts group texts about rent. But Douglas? Oh, he was all over it. He went on and on about networking, for what, I have no idea. The guy talks about networking at every random event like he's running for office or something. I just said, sure, because, honestly, I hadn't been out in weeks. I figured there'd be free snacks, and if it got boring, I could just dip early. We got there, and it was surprisingly fancy. Not, like, rich people fancy, but there were actual glass cups, and the music wasn't blasting from some cheap speaker that sounded like it had been dropped in a toilet. A good sign, I thought. But immediately, the vibe felt off. Claire was in this super expensive-looking velvet top, and everyone seemed to know each other, except for us. Douglas, meanwhile, was acting like he was on his own talk show. All handsy, laughing way too loud, constantly nudging me to work the room with him. Me? I was just there for the chips, honestly. I tried to just wander around, even chatting with Claire about our shower pressure and the noisy dryer. But I couldn't help but notice Douglas. He was already drinking fast. His second drink was in his hand before I'd even finished my first. I tried to joke about him going hard on a Saturday, but he just shrugged. Then he muttered something about needing to loosen up after a week of dealing with my nagging. Not even a smile. It stung, you know. But I brushed it off. He always has some snarky comeback, but lately, they've been sharper, more pointed. And yeah, maybe I can be a little too on top of things sometimes, but if I don't remind him about bills, guess who gets the angry texts from Claire? Spoiler, not him. About 30 minutes in, I realized I was basically just trailing him, picking up after him. He was talking to these two guys I barely recognized when I overheard him. Oh, Haley's super helpful, he said, couldn't keep my place clean if she wasn't around. But the way he said it? It wasn't a compliment. It felt like he was laughing at me. I tried to shake it off, again. But then he kept going, rambling about how he never has to worry about rent being late because someone is basically his accountant/maid combo. The guys chuckled, clearly unsure if it was funny. I gave him a look, a real dagger stare, and he just winked at me. That was it. I headed to the kitchen for another drink, now thoroughly annoyed. And here's the thing about Douglas, he's always been one of those guys whose jokes are just plain mean. If I ever called him out, it was always, lighten up, it's just a joke. Why are you so sensitive? But his jokes were always about things I did for him or things I forgot. And he never let anything go. He'd bring up the time I accidentally shrunk his hoodie like it was some hilarious running bit, but if I ever mentioned something he'd done, it was old news. So, yeah, the whole night I watched him just get drunker and drunker. I was literally texting my friend Avery under the table, begging her to distract me before I did something drastic, like throw a chip at his head. By, I don't know, maybe 11 p.m., most people were tipsy, but Douglas was gone. Johnny. I tried to get him to drink some water, but he completely ignored me. He just started talking louder, like he was performing for the entire room. Claire, our landlord's daughter, came over and sat next to me. She leaned in and quietly asked, "Is he always like this?" I just shrugged, feeling my face flush. She looked so uncomfortable. I mumbled, "He's had a rough week." The dumbest excuse, I know. His rough week involved forgetting his laundry in the washer until it smelled like mildew. That was entirely on him. Then, someone brought up living with partners and the worst chores. And that's when Douglas decided it was his time to shine. He stood up, holding his drink like he was making a toast. He said, "Oh, you want to know what it's like living with Haley?" He paused for dramatic effect. "She's basically my maid with benefits. Good for scrubbing toilets, paying rent, but way too boring for anything else." The room went silent. You could literally hear a pin drop. I saw Claire's face, her eyes widened, like, did he just say that? A couple of his friends let out nervous laughs, but mostly it was that awful, "Oh God, please don't drag me into this," kind of silence. I stood up. I didn't yell, didn't make a scene. I just started walking towards the hallway, desperate to escape. But he wasn't done. Douglas, this guy, grabs my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but enough to stop me cold. He turns to the group, waving my purse in the air like a trophy. "Oh, look," he slurred. "She's going to leave. Sit down, Haley. Come on." Then, to the room, "Look, guys. She doesn't even have the guts to walk away. Pathetic, isn't she?" And people actually laughed. Not everyone, no, but enough that my face burned red hot. Claire was just staring at the floor, mortified. I yanked my wrist away. He didn't let go at first, so I pulled. Hard. It wasn't gentle. I just stood there for a second, my mind racing. I didn't want to make things even weirder, but I was definitely not about to cry in front of these people. So I just sat back down, snatched my purse from his hand, and clutched it in my lap. He stood there for a bit, still trying to get more laughs, but the moment had passed. The energy in the room had utterly died. For the next hour, I barely moved. I scrolled through my phone, pretending to text, but really, I was just staring at my lock screen, my mind racing. All those times I picked up his slack. All those times I covered his late payments with Claire. All those times I did his dishes because he forgot. I felt like such an idiot. This was the guy who used to bring me coffee in bed when we first started dating, who used to tell me how much he appreciated me. Now, I was just the punchline of his maid jokes. Eventually, a couple of people awkwardly came over and asked if I was okay. I just mumbled that I was fine, just tired. Claire sat next to me again, quietly saying, "You don't have to stay, you know." But I just shook my head. I didn't want to make a bigger scene, and anyway, Douglas was still lurking around the door like he was guarding it. At some point, he was leaning against the wall, scrolling on his phone. I knew, just knew, he was probably messaging his group chat about how crazy I was being. I wanted to leave so badly, but every time I even thought about standing up, he somehow managed to be in the way. There was this one moment where Claire tried to get past him to let her dog out, and he just completely ignored her, blocking the hallway. She literally had to push him out of the way. He stumbled, almost dropped his phone, and got all mad at her for shoving him. But she just glared and told him to move. Watching that, it finally clicked for me. Okay, I thought, so it's not just me. He's just like this. He always needs to be the center of attention, and if he feels ignored, he'll drag everyone down with him. It was so obvious now that I was actually paying attention. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Avery asking if I was alright, but I just told her I'd call later. Even my mom texted, which was weird for that late, asking if I was coming over tomorrow. I almost replied, just to have an excuse to leave, but I didn't want Douglas to make a scene. I knew he would, so I just waited. Finally, around 2 a.m., people started leaving. I got up, grabbed my coat, and headed for the door. Douglas was standing there, arms crossed, just staring at me. I didn't say a word. I just walked past him. He muttered something under his breath, but I didn't even try to hear what it was. Probably more of his usual garbage. I got outside and just stood on the porch for a minute, trying to catch my breath. Claire came out, holding my phone charger. I'd left it plugged in. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, but she just told me to text her about the dryer if it got worse. I nodded, thanked her, and started the 10-minute walk home. I replayed every single humiliating moment in my head. By the time I reached our apartment, I went straight to bed. I didn't say a word to Douglas when he finally came in, slamming the door behind him like a child. He didn't even look at me. Just kicked off his shoes and went to the bathroom. I lay there, shaking with a mix of fury and disbelief, typing all of this out in my notes app so I wouldn't forget a single detail. That was my Saturday night, you guys. I was so mad, I felt like I was vibrating. I had no idea what I was going to do next, but one thing was for sure, I was not going to let this slide. Alright, so I honestly didn't think I'd be back so soon, but you guys wanted an update, and honestly, typing this out is keeping me from screaming into my phone. I'm still running on fumes, like 4 hours of sleep and a giant iced coffee, so excuse me if this is a little jumbled. I woke up the next morning after that disaster of a party, and my phone was just exploding. 20 missed calls from Douglas's parents. Texts from his mom, all like, please call us. Are you okay? Where's Douglas? Can we talk? Even a missed FaceTime from his sister. Girl, I just slapped my phone on silent and stared at the ceiling for a solid hour. I couldn't deal. Douglas was snoring on the couch, which was weird, because he only ever slept out there when he was trying to be dramatic. Guess he just passed out after stumbling home. I walked past him to get some cereal, and he just mumbled something, rolling over. The kitchen, by the way. It was gross. Still had Solo cups from last week, a sink piled high with his dishes, the counter sticky from that time he tried to make margaritas and got sugar everywhere. It looked like a toddler had thrown a party and forgotten to clean up. I just stared at it, and it hit me, I'm the only person who ever does any of this. Every single time. I couldn't even remember the last time he took out the trash without me reminding him. He always claims he's bad at noticing mess, but somehow, he always notices when I miss a spot. I sat with my coffee, my mind buzzing, trying to figure out what to do. I could just leave, right? Text Claire, tell her the rent's on him. Pack my bags and crash at my mom's or Avery's for a few days. But honestly, that wasn't enough. I wanted him to feel it. I wanted him to actually deal with the mess he'd made, literally and figuratively. I wanted him to realize, finally, just how much I actually did around here, because he never had. And after last night, I was not in the mood to be the bigger person. I was petty, and I was proud. So, I started making a list. Literally, in my notes app. Every single thing I'd paid for. Every time I'd covered his half of the rent. Every bill I'd set up. Every single cleaning supply I'd bought. Every random thing he'd forgotten at the store that I just picked up. And you guys, the list was long. I scrolled for a solid minute just looking at all the little things. Toilet paper, paper towels, Swiffer refills, laundry cards, light bulbs, trash bags, that stupid scented candle he liked, literally everything. I even found Venmo receipts from last year when he claimed he couldn't access his account, and I'd covered his share of the internet for 3 months straight. He never paid me back, just kept saying, "Oh, I'll get it next time." Right. The more I went through it, the angrier I got. Then I started taking pictures of everything around the apartment that was actually mine. The couch? Mine. The TV? Bought that when I moved in. The plates, the silverware, the microwave, the sheets. All mine. The only things that weren't were this ugly lamp his parents gave him and a broken kettle he swore he was going to fix, but never did. I started mentally categorizing everything. What can I take without needing a U-Haul? What do I actually care about? What would he even notice was gone? I texted Avery, asking if I could borrow her car next weekend. She just sent back a middle finger emoji and, say less. God, I love her. I ignored Douglas all morning. He shuffled into the kitchen around noon, looking like death warmed over. He made a big show of pouring himself some water, rubbing his temples dramatically. I just sat there, scrolling through my phone, not even pretending to be interested in making him breakfast. Eventually, he tried to make small talk, saying he didn't remember much from last night. I just looked him dead in the eye and said, "You said enough." He looked confused for a second, then got defensive. "Oh, come on, Haley. You know I was just kidding. Everyone jokes like that." I just stared at him. Didn't respond. He got annoyed, mumbled something, and went back to the couch. My mom called again, asking if I was coming to dinner. She could totally tell something was up, but I just said I wasn't feeling great and I'd text her later. She asked if Douglas was coming, and I actually laughed. She didn't push, just said to call if I needed anything. Honestly, I should have told her everything right then, but I just wasn't ready for the whole, "we warned you about him" speech. Parents never let that go, do they? Douglas spent the rest of the afternoon glued to his phone, scrolling TikTok and texting his friends. I heard him laugh a couple of times, then he went super quiet. I peeked over and saw he was in a group chat with Carson and Andrew, his two ride-or-die college buddies. They were talking about how awkward last night was. Someone mentioned Claire looked pissed. Douglas just typed, "She'll get over it. She always does." I took a screenshot. Not for blackmail, just proof that he knew he was an ass. Around 5 p.m., I started packing. Not everything, just the small, personal things. My chargers, my makeup, my favorite hoodie, my headphones, some books, my laptop, stuff he'd never even notice missing. I put it all in a bag and loaded it into my car. He didn't even ask where I was going. Just grumbled, "Bring back some chips if you stop at the store." I slammed the door when I left. I sat in the car for a minute, just breathing, then drove straight to Avery's to drop off my bag. She didn't ask questions. Just handed me a soda and put on some music. Girl, I almost cried right there, but I held it in. When I got back, Douglas was already playing Xbox, yelling at some kid online about camping and spawn points. I went into the bedroom and started looking through the closet. Half the clothes in there were mine, but his stuff was always just in a pile on the floor. I started folding my clothes into a laundry bag. He walked in and asked what I was doing. "Laundry," I said, my voice flat. He just shrugged and went back to his game. I made dinner. Just for myself. He eventually wandered in, asking where his was. I told him he could make his own. He actually pouted, like a genuine child. I just walked past him and went to my room. I spent the night texting Claire. I asked if she was okay after last night, and she said she was just embarrassed for everyone. She apologized that I had to deal with Douglas and told me to let her know if I ever needed anything with the apartment. I asked if she thought her dad would let Douglas stay if I moved out. She responded, "Well, you're not on the lease, are you?" "Just him." I said, "Yeah, just him," because when we moved in, he said he'd handle the paperwork and never got around to putting my name down. Said it'd be less complicated. She replied, "Then he's responsible for the rent." "Good to know," I typed back. She sent a thumbs up emoji. For the first time in days, I actually felt a little spark of hope. The next morning, I started moving more of my stuff. Douglas barely even noticed. He was too busy arguing with Andrew about fantasy football and complaining about the Wi-Fi. I started unplugging things that were mine and putting them into boxes. The router? Mine. I pay for it. The coffee maker, the kitchen knives, my blender, my throw pillows, even the air fryer. I took them all. I left all his crap, his old laptop, his ugly gaming chair, his pile of random wires he swears he'll organize someday. I texted Avery to come help me with the bigger stuff. She pulled up around 2 p.m. We loaded her car with boxes. He actually wandered out and asked what we were doing. I just said, "Moving some things." He nodded, completely oblivious, and went back inside. I left the absolute essentials for the next day, my bed, my dresser, my bathroom stuff. I figured I'd come back for those when he was at the gym. He goes every Tuesday at 6 p.m. like clockwork, always posting some sweaty mirror selfie on Snapchat. I texted Claire and told her I'd be completely out by the weekend. She said, "Just let me know if there are any problems." I told her I'd leave my keys in the mailbox that night. Douglas continued to act like nothing was weird. He asked if I wanted to watch something. "No thanks," I said. He pouted again, genuinely. I almost laughed. He complained about the kitchen being empty. "Maybe go to the store," I suggested. "Why are you being like this?" he whined. "You know what you did," I shot back. He rolled his eyes and walked away. I slammed the bathroom door and stayed in there for about 20 minutes, just taking deep breaths. My mom called again. This time, I finally answered and just told her, "I'm moving out." "Oh, honey," she said. She didn't even sound surprised. She just asked, "Do you need help moving?" I told her Avery had it covered. "Do you want to stay here for a bit?" she asked. "Maybe, but I think I'll be okay," I said. She just said, "Okay, just let me know." I almost told her everything, all the ugly details, but I couldn't bring myself to yet. Okay, so here's where it really gets good. The next day, like clockwork, Douglas left for the gym at 6 a.m. I texted Avery. She came right over. We grabbed the last of my stuff. On the counter, I left a note, a full, itemized list of everything he owed me for the last year: rent, bills, groceries, cleaning supplies, all of it. At the bottom, I added, "Your turn to pay. Don't forget the toilets." I put my keys in the mailbox. I took one last look at the apartment. It looked sad, empty, and frankly, kind of pathetic. I walked out without looking back. I went straight to Avery's. She handed me a drink, and we just watched dumb YouTube videos for hours, just trying to decompress. Later that night, my mom texted to say she was proud of me. I didn't reply right away, I just needed a bit more space. Then, the texts from Douglas started pouring in. He was absolutely furious. You blindsided me. You're selfish for leaving me with all the bills. I can't believe you do this to me. I didn't reply. He called. I ignored it. He called again and again. So I blocked him. I blocked his mom. I blocked his sister. I even blocked Andrew and Carson, just to be safe. I texted Claire, confirming I was officially out. She just said, "Thanks for letting me know." I asked if Douglas had paid the rent yet. "Not yet," she replied. "Good luck with that," I sent back. So, yeah. That's where I was. I was out. I was gone. And I left him with a mess he couldn't possibly ignore. He always wanted to be the big man, the one in charge, the one who never did anything wrong. Well, now he had to figure out how to clean up after himself. Literally and figuratively. I wasn't saying I was done. If he wanted to play games, I could play too. But for now, I was going to let him stew. Maybe now he'd finally realize who was actually pathetic. Alright, you guys, this is probably going to be my last update for a while, unless something truly wild happens. Honestly, I'm exhausted, and I really need to get on with my own life. But I promised a final wrap-up, and this one? This one is a lot. So, if you're still with me, thank you for all the support, the DMs, the girl, same, comments, all of it. I'm seriously not used to random internet strangers rooting for me, so it's been weirdly nice. After the last post, I was mostly just waiting to see if Douglas would actually pay his rent or if he'd get kicked out. To be honest, I didn't think he'd go down without some pathetic last move. And I wasn't wrong. But before all that, let me start with the weirdest part, his parents. The morning after I left for good, I still had those 20 missed calls stacked up from his mom, dad, and even his sister on an old number. I kept ignoring them, and I'm not gonna lie, it got to the point where I felt a little petty for not even texting back, "I'm alive. Leave me alone." But then, around noon, my phone started blowing up again. Same numbers, but now with long voicemails. His mom, all frantic, begging me to just talk to her, saying Douglas was in bad shape, hadn't eaten, couldn't sleep, and had never been like this before. I listened to about half a message, rolled my eyes, and deleted it. I'm not cold-hearted, but I'm not his mediator anymore. I'm not his parent, not his therapist, and certainly not his maid. The next thing, and this is the part that really just made me want to flip a table, is that she started texting my mom. Like, my actual mom. I guess she still had her number from that one time they met at a holiday thing. I only found out because my mom called me, sounding tired. Is everything okay?" she asked. "Douglas's mom says he can't pay rent, and he needs you to come back and talk some sense into him." My mom sounded like she was expecting me to say I was getting back together with him, but I told her straight up, "Nope, I'm done. He's on his own. Please don't answer her anymore." She just said, "Okay," and asked if I needed her to bring over groceries. Douglas kept calling. Now he was switching between mad and sad. One second it was, "You ruined my life." The next it was, "I'm sorry, come back, I'll change." I ignored every single call. He tried new numbers, even tried to FaceTime me. I blocked everything. It was honestly like whack-a-mole. Avery kept laughing about it, saying I should start charging him by the call. Meanwhile, Claire texted me that her dad had finally given Douglas the official notice. He had to be out by Friday if he couldn't pay. Apparently, he tried to get an extension by saying his ex sabotaged him. Claire's dad just said, "It's not my business. Pay or move." Douglas tried to guilt everyone else. Carson texted me that Douglas tried to borrow money from him, claiming I stole his stuff. Nope. I literally only took what was mine and left the rest, receipts and all. Gabriella messaged me, saying Douglas DM'd her asking if she'd vouch for him if Claire's dad asked about payment history. She just sent him a gif of someone laughing, and girl, that made my night. The only person who didn't seem to be taking sides is Andrew, but that's just because he hates drama, not because he's neutral. He texted me saying he didn't want to get involved, which is basically his motto for life. By Thursday, Claire texted me that Douglas was in full panic mode. He was behind on everything, rent, internet, probably even his random subscriptions. I still get emails about his old food box service, which, again, not my problem. I guess he tried to call Claire's dad again, and when that didn't work, he called his mom, who then called me again. This time, I picked up, mostly because I was so incredibly annoyed. She started in with a whole, please, Haley, I know he messed up, but he's so lost without you. He's not good at handling life stuff, you know how he is. I just said, sorry, I'm not part of this anymore. You need to talk to your son, not me. She started crying a little, which was awkward, and I just said goodbye and hung up. I think the real reason Douglas treats people like this is because he's always gotten away with it. His parents baby him. His friends either ignore it or laugh it off. And I was just the latest person to pick up the slack. He gets loud when he's embarrassed, jokes when he's nervous, and when that doesn't work, he just expects someone else to come fix things. I mean, I kind of knew he was lazy, but I never truly saw just how much he depended on people cleaning up after him until I stopped doing it. So anyway, Friday came. I was at my new place, which, honestly, is a shoebox, but at least it's mine. Eating leftover noodles, I got a text from Claire. Just a thumbs up emoji and he's out. Apparently, Douglas didn't pay. Didn't even pack up half his stuff, he just left it there. Claire's dad said he could come get the rest if he wanted, but the locks were changed, and he wasn't living there anymore. I asked if he made a scene. She just said he cried a little, slammed the door, and left. I almost felt bad for a second, but then I remembered how he acted at that party, and I was just like, nah. I don't. And get this, he tried to show up at my new place. Like, literally knocked on the door. I heard it, peeked out the window, and there he was, standing there with his hoodie pulled up and holding a grocery bag. I didn't open the door. I texted Avery, who lives in the next building over, and she came out, stood on the sidewalk, and just stared at him until he left. He didn't even try to talk to her, he just walked off. Avery texted me, dude is lost. I blocked his number again, just in case. The next day, I got a letter in my mailbox. It was from Douglas, handwritten, which is wild, he never writes anything unless he absolutely has to. It was like 3 paragraphs of apologies, excuses, begging for another chance, saying he can't do this alone, that he didn't mean any of it, blah, blah, blah. He even said he'd pay me back for everything if I just came back. I ripped it up and tossed it, not even tempted to reply. So that's it, I guess. Douglas is out. I'm out. Claire's family is already cleaning the apartment for new tenants. His parents tried everything, even called my mom again. She just ignores them now. Gabriella says Douglas is couch surfing at Andrew's place, but Andrew isn't loving it and will probably kick him out soon. Carson's still neutral, but he texted me that Douglas is talking about moving back in with his parents. I'm honestly just so glad I'm not the one cleaning up after him anymore. Next time someone calls me boring, I'll just laugh and move on, because honestly, I'd rather be boring and free than stuck picking up after some guy who thinks he's the main character. So, yeah. Thanks for sticking through my unhinged saga. If you're ever in a situation where you're doing all the work and someone treats you like the help, trust me, don't wait for a big epiphany. Just start packing. You'll be shocked how fast the trash takes itself out. And no, I never called his parents back. Not my circus, not my monkeys. If Douglas wants to get his life together, he can start by learning how to do laundry. Or at least how to pay his own damn rent. That's all for now. Maybe next time, I'll have a fun story for you.